What's up, photography students? Mr. Lin here. I'm going to be showing you how to make a real simple composite, which is a combination of more than one photo that have kind of been assembled together in Photoshop. This is often what is meant when you hear people use the word Photoshop like a verb, like something's been Photoshopped. Two photos have been manipulated such that they can kind of make one new image. So we're going to do that together using just the same images so you get the hang of it, and then I'll ask you guys to do this on your own, perhaps using some other images used on Google for more practice. And then ultimately what I want you to do is make one with content that's entirely from you, or photographs that you took, so that it's entirely yours and not something you found on Google. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our class website. You can, if you don't have that bookmarked already, you can just go to GSHS Lin and click on the photography tab. We're going to go down to the special effects project, and we are going to click on the compositing practice link within there. I'm going to have you download these two images. One is of a bull rider, and the easiest way to download that is to just click it and drag it to your desktop like so. And then I already have it on there, so that's why it prompted me to replace it, but it should just work for you the first time. And we're also going to get the shark, and if you haven't already put the connection together, we're going to have the cowboy riding the shark instead of the bull. So once you have downloaded those, we're going to go into Photoshop. I'll just say open, and we're going to find that picture of the shark and open it. Usually I recommend you search for kind of high resolution images. This is kind of a small, low resolution image. So just to make it closer in size to the one of the cowboy, I'm going to come up here and edit the image size. So I'm going to say image size and the image menu there, and I'm just going to change the resolution to like 300 pixels per inch instead of 72, which will make it just a little bit bigger. It's not going to necessarily increase the quality that much, but when we bring the cowboy in there, it'll be closer to the same size to start with. So I zoomed in and out by holding the Z key on my keyboard. Then I click the normal button on my mouse, the left button, and I just kind of swipe back and forth with my mouse. That's the easiest way to zoom in Photoshop, which you're constantly doing for a variety of reasons. Then I'm just going to take the cowboy or bull rider picture from my desktop and just pop it right in there. I may have previously taught you guys how to make selections with something called the quick selection tool, which is usually the quickest, easiest way to do that. We probably did it that way for our action sequence and our action project, if we've done that at this point in this year. However, I'm going to show you another way, just because it's good to have more tools in your Photoshop kind of toolbox, so to speak. So I'm going to use what's called the pen tool in this case, which is this tool right here. It looks kind of like an old-fashioned kind of quill pen that you might dip in the ink. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in, like I said, which is useful. I'm just going to pick a place to start, like maybe his armpit here. I'm going to start just clicking. You don't hold the mouse down. You just click, let go, and you just kind of move it around and you trace around the figure that you want to select. And we're going to remove the sort of the dirt background from the rodeo grounds here. One advantage that this pen tool method has over doing it with the quick selection is that sometimes the quick selection tool has a difficult time differentiating between the figure and the background. And this just gives you kind of total control over what's going to get selected and what is not. The disadvantage, of course, is it's a little tedious because you got to go around and like click around the whole edge and trace around the whole edge like this, whereas the quick selection tool just kind of does that part for you. Another advantage of the pen tool is that sometimes the quick selection tool gets a little bit of your background, and that's not that big of a deal if you're doing something like an action sequence, because the backgrounds theoretically should be the same. So even if there's some background that gets selected, it should just blend in with the background that you had. However, that's not always the case if you move your camera. In this case, we have two totally different backgrounds, the dirt rodeo grounds and then kind of the ocean behind the shark. So obviously if you get some of that dirt, it's going to show up against the ocean if you don't make a careful selection. And I'm making a recording right now, Coulter, so give me a few minutes to finish here. So that can show up against the background if you don't make a careful selection. So it's actually more important to make a careful selection with the pen tool than it would be with, when you're doing a composite like this than it would be with an action sequence where the backgrounds are the same and they line up. So the one advantage, I was kind of a long-winded way of getting to saying, is the pen tool has over something like the quick selection tool is, I'll zoom in and demonstrate this. There's an edge between the cowboy and the background here. I could just go along the actual edge, or I could go just like a pixel width on the inside and then leave a little space here, and then I won't get any of that dirt background. So once you have this whole selection made, and you don't have to make it perfect for practice here, you can convert this thing that we created with the pen tool, which is called a path. You can convert that to a selection, and you probably have the layers panel open right here, so you want to switch it to the paths panel. And at the bottom of the paths panel, there is a little button that looks like a circle with a dotted line. It says load path as selection. And lost my train of thought there. Yeah, if you click that, you'll see a familiar kind of little marching ants pattern that goes around the cowboy like that. That creates the selection. From there, it's basically a matter of doing the same thing we did with the action sequence, which is to mask the background. However, you notice that mask and select menu does not appear at the top here. That's because we don't have a selection tool. We still have the pen tool. If you switch to any of these three selection tools, the rectangle marquee, the lasso, or the quick selection tool, it doesn't really matter which one, then the property will appear at the top. The properties bar will change, and you have the select and mask menu. Then you can go to the bottom here. Here's another trick. If you hit F on your keyboard, not working right now, but it should cycle through. Oh, I'm hitting D instead of F. It's still not working. Not sure why it's not working, but try hitting F on your keyboard. There we go. It'll cycle through and show you different options to kind of see the selected cowboy against different backgrounds. Like the red's kind of nice here because it looks so different than the rest of them. Here's another advanced tip. You can actually take this little brush here, and if you screwed up part of the selection or you want to edit it a little bit, you can actually paint in some of the edges, or you can hold Alt to remove parts of it. But I think I did a pretty decent job here. I guess I missed a finger there, so I can kind of go like this and just kind of refine the detail edges of your selection. And then sometimes I click on this Smart Radius one, increase this a little bit. Sometimes it helps detect the edges. You can play around with the smooth option, and I usually do the feather just a tiny bit, because when you cut something out with a pen tool, it has the look of having cut something with the scissors. So if the feathering will just soften the edge and make it look not so kind of cookie cutter, so to speak. And then we're gonna finally, the most important thing to remember here is change the output menu from selection to layer mask. And then when you click OK, you'll have the cowboy isolated from his background. And you can kind of move him so he's sitting on the shark like this. That doesn't look very good, obviously, that you have to pay attention to more than just like cutting it out. But there's the angle as well. So if you throw Control T on here and rotate him so he's kind of looking like he's going, yee-haw, he's getting bucked off the back of it, you can kind of figure it out so it looks like he's actually sitting on the shark's back. Now, this is actually relatively convincing, not like a cowboy would actually be riding a shark, but in terms of like how they come together visually, it works fairly well because the camera angle is controlled, as well as the light is a similar type of outdoor light from a similar direction. If you notice, there's like a shadow behind the shark's pectoral fin here. There's also some shadows on this side of his hat, so it kind of makes it look like things line up correctly. And when you guys take the photos for your own photo composite for the class project, these are the things you want to pay attention to if you really want to make this illusion convincing. If you want to sell the illusion, you have to think about where the light's coming from, and you also have to think about the type of light that's being used. And then thirdly, think about the camera angle. You can't change the camera angle between the two photos. They just won't kind of line up in this sort of space-time continuum. So that's basically how you do this. If you want to pop this into a Google Photo Albums or your photo journal, where I usually have you turn this type of thing in, you want to say File, Save. Usually when I'm using Adobe products, I start by saving something to the cloud. That way I can access it from anywhere and I can come in and edit it. So I can call this like Ocean Rodeo or something I'll remember. Say Save, and then I'm not sure why it says can't load cloud documents, but usually you should be able to save like that. So what we're going to do is switch to on our computer, which is what you need to do anyway if you're going to turn it in somewhere, so it's locally accessible. So the first step when you're saving something is always choose a location where you can find it. Like the desktop is easy usually. We can title it again like Ocean Rodeo. And then we're going to switch from Photoshop format to a format that'd be recognized by something like a Google Doc or a Google Photos album, like a JPEG file. And then go ahead and click Save. And there's one last step. I already did this, so I'm just going to replace it. There's one last step here. It allows you to adjust the quality of your or size of your resulting image. I usually like images like this to be at least 1 megabyte in size, but since the shark photo is so low resolution to begin with, even if we crank the quality all the way up, it's only 753 kilobytes. It's not even 1 megabyte, but generally if you're using your own photos from your phone camera, they're going to be much higher than this anyway. So just be aware of this quality slider, and you sometimes for display or print purposes are going to want to increase that to the right size. We click OK. And then if you do have your photo journal open like this, you can find that on your desktop, pop it in, and just title that with today's date, and you're all set. Best of luck. All right, cool. I have to figure out how to stop my recording. There we go.